That is the answer. These two miracle drugs have put me back in the chair 8 hours after I left this exact position. Although the backdrop did not look like it did not look that way last night. Uh-oh, I'm already tongue-tied. Hello, hello, hello. Mark Lauer and Jim Greiner. Esteban Fernandez. And of course, Jamal, Professor Dove, Nick Tafaro, Jamal. So the gang is all here, eh? Yeah, Connie is here as well. I know why you're tuned in. You're tuned in because you want to get a look at the eyes. I've already shared with you my treatment. I guest hosted for Cuomo last night, went home, probably slept for 4 hours, but I feel pretty good, actually. Show went well last night. Had good guests, some good material with which to work, and I am ready to go for my own program this morning. So happy Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth, first in our nation's history. I guess literally today, but recognized for the first time as a federal holiday yesterday. And happy Father's Day to everybody for tomorrow. Hope you have a great weekend. I hope the weather cooperates and that you have your dad with you or you're thinking about your father. So let me deal with the substance of what I want to cover today. And then to the extent anybody has questions or comments, I'll try and keep pace with those who are tuned in. I think that the dominant news story the last couple of days and this week from Washington, voting rights and this so-called Sr1 or For the People Act, which is going to get a vote on Tuesday. And this was already something that was in the works before Republicans in the aftermath of 2020 tried to start changing on a state level the voting requirements in so many different locales. But now it's really gained heft. And there are two different federal pieces of legislation. One is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, but the For the People Act is the one that's coming up first. The For the People Act would do a number of things and does not have any Republican support. Mitch McConnell has served notice that he's steadfast in his opposition and doesn't expect anybody to break ranks from his caucus. And of course, all eyes have been on Joe Manchin. What's he going to do? A couple of weeks ago in a West Virginia newspaper, he wrote a piece, Why I'm Voting Against the For the People Act. And he said, I believe that partisan voting legislation will destroy the already weakening binds of our democracy. And for that reason, I will vote against the For the People Act. Furthermore, I will not vote to weaken or eliminate the filibuster. So that's Joe Manchin writing in a West Virginia newspaper not that long ago. As the negotiations have continued, a couple of things have happened. Number one, The Intercept this week had some audio that was leaked of a Joe Manchin phone call where he said this. I looked back in, I think it was 1973, when it went from 67 votes to 60 votes, and also what was happening, what made them think that it needed to change. So I'm open to looking at it. I'm just not open to getting rid of the filibuster. That's all. And right now, 60 is where I'm planting my flag. But as long as they know that I'm going to protect this filibuster, we're looking at good solutions. Well, his word choice, I'm open to looking at it. And his historical reference to 1973, when the filibuster was 67 and then it moved down to 60, suggests that he's open to the idea that there be a change in the filibuster. Okay, that's development number one, is that now, by virtue of the leaked audio, we get an insight into his thought process. And then development number two is that Wednesday, or maybe it was Thursday, Manchin released a 3-page document where he sets forth what he can live with in terms of the For the People Act compromise, as he puts it. make Election Day a public holiday, mandate at least 15 consecutive days of early voting, ban partisan gerrymandering, and use computer models. Key one, require voter ID with allowable alternatives, utility bill, etc., to prove identity to vote, and automatic registration through DMV. There was another one, point number 8, require states to send absentee by mail ballots to eligible voters before an election if voter is not able to vote in person during early voting or election day due to eligible circumstance, and allow civil penalty for failure. Okay, what's the point? I don't want to get lost in the weeds. So Joe Manchin has proposed a compromise trying to bridge the gap between Democratic support and Republican opposition to the so-called For the People Act. And in it, he says, as you just heard me say, that he thinks that voter ID should be a component. Stacey Abrams, much to the surprise of some progressives, bought into the Manchin compromise. By the way, I like the way Joe Manchin phrases this. I've always thought that to ask for an ID when a person votes is entirely reasonable, as long as it's the sort of ID that people in that particular community are likely to have. Don't ask for, a gun permit in an area where people are not pro-firearm, and don't ask for a driver's license where you're in a community where there are a lot of people relying on mass transit who don't drive cars. That sort of reasonableness. I don't like that Manchin seems to be saying that he thinks absentee voting should be for cause only. That's what Pennsylvania used to be, and I hated that system. So a lot of hullabaloo now, right? That, Manchin has come up with a compromise and Stacey Abrams has bought into it. So to the casual observer, you would think, wow, this is a really big deal because Democrats are now going to get to 50. And with Kamala Harris, she can break the tie on the For the People Act. But the reality is you don't need 50, you need 60. This is not a reconciliation circumstance. It's not a budgetary matter. So the number is 60. It's not 50. So Manchin maybe gets you some public recognition that it's the Democrats who are compromising and not the Republicans, but it doesn't get you any new law. So what's it all about? Here's my theory. What it's all about, and the reason that there will be this, perhaps on Tuesday, show vote on the For the People Act, is that I think what's really going on is Democrats are now setting up a situation where it will be a Joe Manchin compromise that they'll buy into and Republicans won't. And it will be Manchin on the receiving end of a strictly partisan vote. And the Democratic hope is that that will soften him to go along with what he said on that leaked phone call, alter the number required for a filibuster. That's the big picture play that I see going on here. Why else all the excitement and expenditure of resources for something destined to fail? It is that they have their eye on a bigger prize, which is lowering the threshold for the filibuster. Which, by the way, in this case, even if they lowered it to 55, I don't see 5 Republicans who are coming around to supporting this. But if you're the Biden administration, you and I don't want to minimize it, but you are, quote unquote, only able to get done the big spending bills where you can rely on reconciliation, $6 trillion worth. Sure, you can go and you can meet with Putin and you can sign a bunch of executive orders, but Joe Biden has a laundry list of campaign pledges that he will not be able to execute because of the filibuster. And before you know it, it's already June. Before you know it, it will be 2022 and we'll be in the midst of a midterm election and they won't have much to show for what they were able to get done while he was in the White House. So that's the big picture. Okay, it just doesn't make sense that, oh my gosh, Manchin, they got to 50, hooray, Kamala Harris can break the tie. So what? It's going to take 60, not 50. Is the real play here to bring Joe Manchin around to getting rid of, probably not, or lowering the threshold for the filibuster. So that's what I think is going on. Share that with a friend if you're having cocktail conversation about Washington, D.C. and want to offer some insight. Amazing RC, you agree, huh? John McKenzie, what's the point? I just told you the point, John. I just told you the point. The point is that it's not about the short term on this bill. It's about the long term and trying to get things done. Mia, so now they want to get rid of the filibuster to help Biden? Well, I think the Biden administration would like to see, even though he's a traditionalist or institutionalist, he meaning the president, they just can't get things done, given the intransigence that exists in Washington. Joe the Nerd, the real play is for Manchin to join the GOP. I don't see that happening. I think of, the parties have changed so much in the last 30 years, but I think of Manchin being a more old school Democrat. I don't think he'd be comfortable in this incarnation of the Republican Party. It's amazing. It's amazing that Joe Manchin is where he is, given the margin, was it 30 some points by which Donald Trump beat Joe Biden in West Virginia. What else? HSB Skyer, McConnell is slamming Manchin's proposed changes. Yeah, well, he's steadfast against them. I mean, the key components of what Manchin can live with: make Election Day a holiday. How do we feel about that, by the way? I remember having that conversation not too long ago on Sirius XM, where a caller of mine, proposed a combination Veterans Day, Election Day, or that we would all vote on Veterans Day. I like that idea. I don't know that I want to create another holiday, but if we could line up Veterans Day and Election Day, I think that's in keeping with, men, women who died, so that we can exercise choice at the ballot box. That's how I see it. Ban partisan gerrymandering. Amen to that. Just don't lose sight of the fact that, and Bill Bishop wrote the book, The Big Sort, it's not just gerrymandering. We have people choosing to live among the like-minded. As I've said so many times on radio, and David Wasserman from the Cook Political Report has done good research on this, the number of blowout counties is through the roof in the last couple of decades, and county boundaries don't change. So it's not just gerrymandering. Gerrymandering, that pertains to state legislative and congressional boundary lines. Okay, they aren't fixed. Every 10 years, we shift them around a little bit. The counties, we have like 3,100 counties in the United States. The number of blowout counties in the last 3 decades, through the roof. What accounts for that? We don't change county boundary lines. Mandate 15 consecutive days of early voting. I don't know if the number's 15. 15 may be too many because stuff happens in the last days of a campaign, but I mean, at least a week. At least a week, I think you ought to have the opportunity to vote. Require ID with allowable alternatives. Yeah, that's fine. I'm totally fine with that. Show my ID all over the place. Why not to vote? Allow sending absentee ballots to voters with eligible circumstance. I don't like that. I don't like that. I like being able to sit at the kitchen table, look at some of those ballot questions. Let's be honest that we have no idea what they're about and they require some research. Or maybe it's a lower profile election, being able to read in on who those candidates are and vote from home without regard for where you will be on election day. It was one of the greatest changes that Pennsylvania has made, which was to welcome no-cause absentee balloting. So that's how I see it. Yeah, that's to me what the big picture is relative to Manchin. Eric Swenson, Election Day is a paid holiday for many government workers. Yeah, that's true. You're saying it already is a holiday, I guess is your point. And Sakura, wait a minute, these are good ideas. The GOP won't go for it. They can't win without cheating. Hey, the GOP is doing just fine. The GOP is doing just fine on a state level, and with a tie in the Senate, and arguably poised to take control of the House of Representatives. So, can they win a national, meaning a presidential race? That's a separate subject. But don't kid yourself in terms of the GOP being dead. It's not. Harvey, election day not for federal workers, maybe for state workers. All right, gang, I got to get to work because I don't want to neglect my own program, having spent last night working on Chris's show. Thank you so much for your interest, for being here. I promise I'll read these scrolls during the course of the weekend at some point. I wish you a happy Juneteenth, a happy Father's Day. You do know, speaking of Wawa Coffee, that TC got her big score for TC After Dark. It's kind of funny because everybody loves Mayor from Easttown, the Kate Winslet Philly shot, Delco shot TV show. And I was sort of a late comer to the party, watched all 7 episodes. I'm the outlier. Like, it was too dark for me, but I know everybody loves that show. Everybody loves that show. And TC loved that show and was always telling me, watch it, watch it, watch it. Well, she scored the originator and the producer. Maybe I have the titles mixed up, but the guy who conceived and wrote it, and also the person who carried it out. And I know that I haven't heard it yet, but I will this weekend. But I know that's her big new episode of TC After Dark. So if you are a Wawa fan, if you are a Mayor of Easttown fan, go give her some play in that regard. And right here on my YouTube channel, we've got some really good interviews. I hope you're watching them all. Thank you for being here. I'll see you soon.